Resourceful Designer, episode 231, Producing In-House.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer Podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your host. He would love to be an extra in a movie or a TV show, Mark Descote.
Don't you think that would be fun? Being an extra on a TV show or a movie? I don't know, maybe be a waiter that shows the lead actors to their table, or maybe a shopper in the same store as them, or maybe even a casualty in some big death scene. That would be so much fun. I wouldn't even need any lines or anything. I'd just like to be able to say, hey, I was in that movie or I was on that TV show. Oh well. Welcome to the podcast. I'm really glad you've tuned in this week. In this episode, I'm going to talk about ways to supplement your design income by producing things in-house. I'm also going to share a resource that can help your business attract new clients. But before I get to that, a little bit of what I've been up to. I've been doing a lot of troubleshooting this week with some client websites. Not problems with the websites, but I had one client that has a software package installed on their site. And to be honest, this software, in my opinion, is a little archaic and troublesome, and it's just really difficult to work with. And they were having a few issues, and they asked me to look into it. So I did. I was able to fix the problems, or at least get them operational. It's a little out of my league, but I was able to get them back online. So that helped them out a little bit. I also have another issue with another client who's having some problems with their podcast website. Again, it's not the website itself, but since I know a lot about podcasting and I built the website for them, they asked me to look into some things. So I'm doing that for them. But besides that, I've got two other websites on the go, both for podcasters as well. I've got no podcast cover artwork this week. It's been a long time since a week's gone by that I didn't actually have to design podcast cover for anybody, but I had none this week. Although I do have 2 meetings next week for some, so just a little fluke in the chain there. And I also took a little bit of time to do a little bit of tweaking on my own website, just change a word here or there. I was looking at the site and thinking, I really don't like the way I wrote this, so I was moving some things around, changing a little bit of the copy, just to make it a little bit nicer. So that's just a few of the little things I've been up to this week. The Resourceful Designer Community is going strong as always. Lots of great conversations happening in there. We've got so many different Slack channels for different topics, talking about self-improvement and tools that we use in our design business, as well as client acquisition, personal growth, critiquing work, talking about web design, and so much more. So there's always a conversation going, something you can jump in, something you can help with, or just a topic or a channel, I should say, in Slack where you can ask your own questions and everybody is so eager and willing to help out in any way they can. So there's been lots of great conversations happening in the group this week, a lot of back and forth, a lot of helping out, and all of that. And that's what's so great about this community. Fellow designers getting to know each other, getting to help each other, and getting to lend a hand and ask for help whenever need be. So if you're looking for a dedicated group of peers, of fellow designers to share your experiences with and to share their experiences with you, then why not join the Resourceful Designer Community at resourcefuldesigner.com/community. And now this week's resource of the week. And this week's resource is my very own 4-week marketing boost. It's been a long time since I shared this as a resource. I thought it was time again. For anybody who is not familiar with this is a short ebook that I wrote myself that has 20 actionable tips to help your presence, mostly your website, but just your overall marketing presence, to improve it in order to attract clients. The idea is it's supposed to improve the first impression that people get when they come to your site or see your marketing material. You only get one chance to make a first impression, so why not make it the best you can? And what I did is I took these 20 steps and I divided them up into small, short segments that you can do once per day over the course of 4 weeks, hence the name, the 4-week marketing boost. And each one of these will take less than 20 minutes. So if you can devote 20 minutes per day over the course of 4 weeks to your business, you will see an improvement afterwards in how people interact with you. So if you're interested in this, it's absolutely free. All you have to do is visit marketingboost.net and download my guide. And I thank you if you do. And now, producing in-house. I got the idea for this episode when Laura, a Resourceful Designer Community member, shared her new toy in one of the Slack channels with us. Laura bought a desktop eco-solvent printer that she can produce stickers and vehicle graphics and apparel graphics and other things in-house. It's going to allow her to produce these materials for her clients, as well as make stuff that she sells in her own Etsy shop. Now, for those of you that are curious out there, Laura bought the Roland VersaSTUDIO desktop sign maker, the BN20. And I'll actually include a link to that in the show notes for this episode. Now, Laura hasn't even set this thing up yet. She just showed it to us in the box. It had just gotten to her place. And she's already had fellow Resourceful Designer Community members ask her about producing things for them. You see, that's another perk of the community. People like to work with people they know. Anyway, this got me thinking about the different ways and the different things that designers like you can produce in-house. Now, for the record, I don't do any of this stuff myself. I had the opportunity years ago, which I'll share with you in a little bit, but I chose to focus my time solely on the design part and not on production. But if you're into it, producing in-house can be a very lucrative income stream for your design business. I want to start by telling you a story. Back in 2005, I decided that it was time for me to leave the print shop and run my own business. But I didn't leave right away. You see, one of the titles I had at the print shop was system manager. And one of my duties as system manager was to oversee all the equipment on premises. And one of my jobs was researching new equipment that the shop needed. Now, at the time that I made the decision to leave, we were waiting for a new digital plate maker to be installed. This was a huge purchase for the shop. And I had spent well over a year researching, negotiating, planning, and prepping for this unit in order to buy it and then prepping for its arrival and its installation. This new plate maker was going to allow the print shop to eliminate the need for the camera, for film, and for a plate burner, because it would allow us to output our files directly from the computer to the printing plates. Now, in 2005, this was state-of-the-art technology. In fact, the machine that we purchased, we were going to be the first one to have that machine. It was going to be the first installation in all of North America for that model. So my plan was to oversee the installation, which was going to happen in January, spend a few weeks, possibly in February, making sure that everything was working smoothly with the new machine, and of course, facilitate everyone's training on it so everybody knew how to operate it properly. And then I was going to hand in my resignation and hopefully leave by the end of February. But as life would have it, things got, well, let's say delayed. The plate maker we were buying was a brand new unit, new model that was being shipped from Germany. And of course, I'm in Canada. And we were told that now it wouldn't be shipping until the middle of March. We were expecting it to ship in January, but with delays at the factory or whatever, it was only going to ship in March. So that kind of deflated me a little bit, but I talked it over with my wife and I made the decision that I'm going to stick it through till April now because I really wanted to see this machine installed. I had spent over a year working to get this machine to the shop. But then finally March came around and there were even more excuses and more delays, and we were told that the installation day now was moved till the end of April. Okay, this wasn't bad, it would just be an extra month. But of course, by this time, I was really itching to leave and devote all my time to my growing business because if you know my story, I was doing web design on the side and that was growing. I was getting a lot more of that, but a lot of my clients wanted me to do logos and other print design for them, which I couldn't do because it was a conflict of interest between what I was doing at the print shop. So I really wanted to go and start my own business. But an extra month, I would stick it out. Now remember, at this time, nobody at the print shop knew that I was planning on leaving. Well, by mid-April, we got the news that there was going to be more delays, and now the earliest they could expect delivery of the plate maker was late July, possibly even early August. Well, that was enough for me. I'd already put it off several times, and I just decided enough's enough. And the day we got the news that there was another delay, I walked into my manager's office and I handed in my 2 weeks' notice. And a couple weeks later, at the beginning of May, I left the print shop, and I've been running my business ever since. So why did I tell you this story? Well, it's because unbeknownst to all of us at the print shop, while all of this was happening, the owner of the print shop had actually decided to make some changes. And during the first week of April, he laid off one of the other designers in our department. And she was devastated. She had been at the print shop for over 20 years, 5 more years than I had been. I was actually her junior, but he let her go. And she took it really, really hard. It was a complete blindside. Nobody saw this coming. And of course, I took it hard as well because I knew I was leaving the print shop. And I actually felt guilty. If I had known that they were planning on doing this, I would have let them know beforehand that I was leaving and she would have still had her job. So I felt horrible, especially a couple of weeks later when I did hand in my resignation, because now they were actually short-staffed. Anyways, a few months later, I ran into this other designer in town and I apologized to her. I told her how bad I felt for her losing her job while I knew all along that I was leaving, because at this point she knew I had left as well. But she told me not to worry, that actually being laid off was one of the best things that ever happened to her. Once she was on her own, she opened up her own in-house design business and she was happier than ever. And now, of course, I'm going to tie this into today's topic. You see, this designer, she told me that she had bought a special printer for printing on cardstock, as well as a hand-operated cutting machine, a folder, and a couple of other things. And she now specialized in wedding and party invitations, something she had always been very passionate about while working at the print shop, and she had been very, very good at designing them. Plus, she can produce business cards, postcards, posters, and a bunch of other things on her new equipment. So she was very, very happy being on her own and said that she would have never been that way if she hadn't been let go from the print shop. Now, that was the very first exposure that I ever had to the idea of a home-based graphic designer producing material in-house. Now, skip ahead a bit to me running my own business, and I get a phone call from my good friend Rick. Rick had been the best man at my wedding, but he had moved away to Toronto, and we had kind of lost touch for a bit there. But he let me know he was moving back to town. So when he did, we got together to kind of catch up a little bit, which was great. And he let me know that he was working for one of the big copier companies. I don't remember if it was Xerox or Canon. I know I had to deal a lot with each of them, and I don't remember which one he ended up working for. Sorry, Rick, if you do listen to the podcast, I really don't remember. Anyways, after catching up with Rick, he asked me if I would be interested in a copier for my business. He had some great machines that he can show me that can help me produce things in-house for my own clients. And the best part of it all is that the machine would not cost me anything. He would install the machine for free, and all I had to do was buy the toner through him or through the company, and I would have to pay a fixed price for every copy I made. And I don't remember what it was. It was something like 11 or 12 cents per copy. So it didn't matter if I was making something for a client or for myself or just extras to test stuff. Every time a print was made, I would pay them 11 cents. There was a counter on the machine, and once a month they would check the counter, and I would have to pay them for whatever had been used, plus, of course, the toner. And that was it. I wouldn't have to pay for the machine itself. Now, this offer was very tempting. I mean, a free machine, and all I had to do was that. And if I didn't make any copies, it wasn't costing me anything. And I calculated it out, and all combined with the copy fees, the price of the toner, and of course, paper, because I had to print on paper, it would cost me under 20 cents per copy. And then I can charge my clients well more than double that. If I was doing a poster, I can charge them $1 something or even $2 per poster, and it would only cost me 20 cents. So that would be really, really good money. But then I started thinking of the time involved, of running the copier, cutting if need be, folding if need be, et cetera, and all the stuff that would be involved. And I decided that it just wasn't for me. I really love designing, and the producing part just didn't really appeal to me. I would prefer make less money on a project by letting somebody else handle that and me just concentrating on the design. So that's my story and the way I can explain that I never got into production, but I had the opportunity. But there are many, many designers out there who love producing their own material. Laura from the Resourceful Designer Community is an example. She's upgrading her machine because she loves doing this stuff. And now she can't wait to get her new sign printer up and running. And of course, the designer I told you about from the print shop, she's still running her wedding and party invitation business today. I mean, she does other design stuff, but that part of the business that she started with her machines, she's still running that. Now, I'm sure it's not the same machines 15 years later, but she's still running that business. And there are many, many other ways and many things that you can produce in-house. Things like stickers and decals. There's heat transfers if you want to do garments or other apparel. There's posters. You can make banners, foil stamping. There's laminating. Embroidery machines are a great one. Circuit makers for doing all sorts of die cutting and package design. You can do screen printing. There's block printing. There's letterpress printing. And of course, there's 3D printing now. And I'm sure there's many more that I'm not even thinking of. In fact, there are so many that it may be hard to choose if you're trying to decide what you can produce in-house. And of course, everything you produce yourself means more money in your pocket compared to if you had to farm it out. Now, I know you may be thinking, well, this machinery, it sounds really good, but it also sounds like a lot of money. So what do you do if you can't afford to get this stuff? Maybe you want to do this, but you can't really afford it. Well, it might actually be easier than you think or less expensive than you think. First off, keep in mind that any and all equipment you purchase for your business can be claimed on your taxes as an expense. Now, there are different categories they may fall in depending on what type of equipment it is. Some of them may have to be amortized over multiple years. Some of them you can claim outright. Your accountant will know all that information. You don't have to know that. But regardless, they can all be a form of taxed expense, meaning, yes, you have to pay for the machine, but it helps you out and it makes what you pay at the end of the year for your taxes less because of that expense. You may even get some money back depending on your situation. But that still involves you buying the machine. Now, other options are secondhand machines or refurbished machines. I know I've been receiving a monthly email newsletter, I think since I left the print shop. So I've been getting this for like 15 years. And it lists equipment for sale by printers and copy shops and design studios, et cetera, et cetera. So it'll have everything from giant 4-color presses to little office printers to cutters and anything that is required in as I said, a print shop, a copy shop, or maybe a design studio. It lists this stuff for sale. So if I ever needed anything, I could just look through and say, oh, what are people selling secondhand? Or sometimes it's refurbished. Now, I might be a little bit hesitant on buying a secondhand printer, but for things like a cutter or a folding machine or maybe an embroidery machine, why not buy secondhand? As long as they're functional. So there's always someone out there that's selling whatever it is that you need. It's just a matter of finding it. And if you buy secondhand or refurbished, you can often get a much better price. Now, the next thing to look for is demo units. Whenever a new model of equipment comes out, like say there's a new embroidery machine is released or a new copier, whatever comes out, the stores that sell those equipment, they will often have units on hand that they have to unload, get rid of. And a lot of times that means they'll put them on sale, so you can get them at a sale price. But you can often get an even better deal by purchasing the demo unit or the floor model, depending on what it does. So if there's an office supply store in your town that sells copier machines, maybe the machine that they have in the office to give demos to people, at some point, they're going to have to unload that machine, and you may be able to get it at a really, really good price. I know this is an unrelated story, but last year, maybe it was 2 years ago, when we had to buy a new dishwasher, we went to Lowe's at the time. Lowe's is now closed in Canada, but there was a Lowe's store here in my hometown. And Lowe's was in the process of replacing their floor models, their dishwashers, because new models were coming out and they were getting rid of the old one. And we ended up picking up a great stainless steel unit for less than half price of what it had sold for normally. And it's just because it was the last one they had. They had no more of these units. The only one left was the one on the floor, and we decided to take it. It still had the full warranty. It was brand new, no scratches. So to us, it was a brand new machine, but we paid less than half price if we would have bought that unit normally. So demo units often can save you a lot of money. Now, of course, that's just going out and saving on the units. But if you don't actually have the money, you may want to check with your local business economic development center or business center or whatever you have in your local area, or even in your state or province or country, whatever, federal or municipal government, and see if there are any grants available for small businesses who want to expand or to purchase equipment. There are so many grants out there. You would be surprised at the amount of money that's there for the taking for anyone who qualifies and know it's there. I know in our area, there's certain grants that you can get if you're Aboriginal. There are certain grants that you can get if you're a female-run businesses. There's plenty of money available for certain minority groups or ethnic groups. That's just there for the taking if you fall into one of those categories. If not, there are other types of grants. I know our local area every year has a certain amount of money that they will hand out to small businesses who need to expand. And that could be anything from renovating to expanding to buying new equipment. And of course, grants are great because you don't have to pay them back. Yeah, some of them do require a lot of paperwork and jumping through a lot of hoops to get them in order to qualify because it's free money. A lot of people want it. So you have to do a little bit of work in order to get it. But they're well worth looking into. You never know what might be available. So contact your local municipality or business center and ask them if there are any grants for a business, a small business who wants to expand by purchasing new equipment. Now, there's also, if you can't get a grant, there are often special loans for businesses that need to expand. And some of these loans are actually available at very low, if not 0% interest rate, which allows you to purchase equipment and then pay it back in installments over time. And if you can get a 0% loan, then why not? It doesn't cost you anything extra and you don't have to put out all the money up front. You can pay it off over time. Now, another option to fund your new equipment is a line of credit. If you can be good and diligent about it, a line of credit is a great option for purchasing new equipment. Now, line of credits often come with much, much lower interest rates than loans do, or especially what credit cards do. So if you can make a purchase, don't put it on your credit card, put it on your line of credit. However, most line of credits, whether they come from a bank or a union or whatever other lending facility, they do require some sort of collateral. So they're usually a lot easier to get if you have something that you can put up as collateral, such as if you're a homeowner. If you're a renter or you have an apartment that you're renting, it might be a little bit harder to get a line of credit. But if you can, they're a great option. And of course, as I mentioned with the story from my friend Rick, whenever he was working for whatever Xerox or Canon, whichever one it was, contact the sellers or distributors of the units that you want to buy, the equipment you want to buy, and see if there's any sort of deals that they can give you. As I said in my story, I could have had that high-end office copier for zero money. He wasn't going to charge me at all. And that wasn't just because we were friends. That was the deal they were giving. It wasn't going to cost me anything. All I had to agree to was purchase the toner through them, which I would have had to buy toner anyway. So I had to agree to buy it through them. And I had to pay a fixed price for the copies I make. So if I didn't make any copies, it didn't cost me anything. So that would have been a really good deal. So contact them and see if you can convince them that you'll be producing enough copies for them to make it worth their while to install the machine in your place, then I'm sure they'll work out a great deal for you. So if you really have your heart set on it, there's always a way for you to get the equipment. But what if you're on the fence and you're wondering, is this really for me? Well, I'm going to share some perks and some cons of producing stuff in-house. I'll start off with the perks. First of all, you make more profit. You can make much more money by producing the stuff yourself than getting somebody else to produce it who has to take their cut as well. So you can make more money in the long run. You also can compete better on prices by charging lower than your competition. So if there's another designer who, say, does business cards and they charge, $50 for 500 business cards, well, you can easily charge $20 because you're producing them in-house where they're sending them out to a printer. So for that sort of stuff, you can compete much easier price-wise. The other perk is you get to control the entire process. You're not sending this out to somebody else and trusting that everything's going to be okay. You control it. If you print off one copy and you see something wrong, you can fix it before you print off the other 100, 200, 500, 1,000, whatever copies. You are in complete control. The other perk is the fast turnaround. If somebody needs something tomorrow and you have to ship it off to a printer to get it done, there's no guarantee you can get it done for tomorrow. But if your client says, I need 50 posters printed by tomorrow, can you do that? Yeah, I can print off 50 posters, no problem. So very fast turnarounds is a great perk. And of course, as I mentioned in our community, Laura hasn't even set up her machine yet, and she's already got fellow community members asking if they can send her some work, or asking at least if she's available or what she's capable of doing for them. So you have the option of producing stuff for other designers. So if you have, say, an embroidery machine, maybe other designers in the area, if they have a client that needs some embroidery work, they may contact you to get it done. So those are some great perks to producing in-house. But on the flip side of that, I want to share a few cons. One, the equipment takes up space. So unless you have the space to operate it, to store it, it does take up a lot of room. That was one of the things when I was thinking about the copier. I didn't really want that copier in my office. And I was thinking in the basement, do I really want to stick a big copier in some corner somewhere of a room and maybe be a little bit of an eyesore? You also need to keep in mind room for supplies. It wouldn't have just been the copier for me. I would have had to keep all sorts of paper, different card stocks, different finishes of stock, different sizes. Also had to keep the toner cartridges, spare toner cartridges on hand. So I needed some place to keep all of that stuff. So you need room for supplies. Of course, there's the ordering of supplies. You got to have a supplier for paper. If you're doing something like greeting cards or wedding invitations, you also have to get envelopes. So, and that's not just one. You have to deal with suppliers for, say you want an envelope for a wedding with a silver lining on the inside, or a gold lining, or a green lining, or a lavender colored lining. You know the way brides can be. They want certain things. Well, you have to be able to supply all that, source that out. And that could be a lot of talking on the phone, dealing with people, ordering supplies, getting them in. So that's one of the cons, in my opinion, is a lot of time and effort doing that. The other thing is just if you're running these things in home, these equipment can get very noisy. I remember this printer that I worked with at the print shop when she started her business telling me that she would sometimes set up a print job and let it run overnight in order to get it done by the morning. And I can't imagine, I know I've got a big enough house, but sleeping in my bedroom at night, you know the way everything is quiet, I would definitely hear that copier copying all through the night. So it can get very noisy depending on what the equipment is. And of course, there's downtime. What happens if that equipment goes down and you have to get it repaired? Everything gets backed up. Now, depending on what sort of deal you have, like I remember talking with my friend Rick about that, and he said if something ever goes down, I can always send my jobs somewhere else or even to them, and they would print them in the showroom for me. But sometimes that's not always an option. So if your equipment goes down, what then? And of course, the final con that I have, and the reason that I chose not to do this, is it's time consuming. If you are producing something like, say, wedding invitations, not only do you have to set everything up, make sure it prints okay, you may have to trim them all afterwards. You may have to score them for folding. Maybe you have to package them up all together, shrink wrap them, get them ready to ship or to pick up or to deliver. And all of that is time consuming. And personally, I would much rather spend that time on my computer designing something for the next client while somebody else is taking care of that part for me. So those are the cons that I have about producing in-house. And as I said, I made the decision years ago that producing in-house was not something I wanted to do. But I'm not you. Maybe this is just the thing that you need to grow your design business and take it to that next level. Maybe you've been struggling. Well, maybe this will help you niche. I talk about niching and choosing a niche to focus your business. Well, maybe this is the niche that will help set you apart. You're the designer that can produce stuff in-house. You're the designer that specializes in stickers or in decals or in banners or in posters or whatever. So if you think this is something that you would like to do, then why not look into it? take the advice I gave, look into it, weigh the pros and cons, and decide if this is something for you. And if you do decide to do it, or even if you decide not to, that it's not for you, let me know. Leave me a comment for this episode at resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 231. So thank you very much for tuning in. I always appreciate when you listen, especially if you're still around at this time on the podcast, still listening to me. And I appreciate you even more. I want to remind you before I go about my 4-week marketing boost at marketingboost.net. In just 20 minutes a day for a 4-week period, if you follow my steps, you'll be in a much better position to attract more design clients. And if you want other great advice on attracting design clients, why not join the Resourceful Designer Community at resourcefuldesigner.com/community. The rest of us in there would be glad to help you. So that's it for this week. Thank you so much. I am Mark Decote, wishing you all the best with your design business and reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer Podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.